I was the foolish rich second-generation heir in a story centered on a powerful female lead. After breaking up with the heroine, my family soon collapsed, leaving me drowning in debt, until one night, when I was working as a designated driver, I ran into the heroine again. She had just walked out of a hotel, holding onto her fiancé's arm, looking down at me from above. She watched as he humiliated me and made things difficult for me, but the next day, she came looking for me again. She said, "Unless you personally experience it once, you will never understand the inferiority and humiliation I once felt." I apologized to her in guilt, and she condescended to be with me again, a so-called happy ending that satisfied everyone. So, after awakening, I broke up with her at lightning speed. She waited outside the villa, eyes red as she asked me why. I told her, "You bring misfortune to your partner. You drain my family's fortune." Chapter 1. A flood of memories from the original book rushed into my mind as I stood with Willow at the entrance of a Michelin 3-star restaurant. The waiter looked at her worn-out clothes with a troubled expression. The waiter said, "Miss, people who are not properly dressed are not allowed to dine in our restaurant." Willow stared at me coldly. "Do you find it funny to humiliate me? Does watching me make a fool of myself make your noble status even nobler?" Rubbing my aching temple, I asked, "You think I did this on purpose?" She said, "What else would it be? You knew I had a part-time job today, yet you chose a place like this. Isn't this exactly what you wanted? George, you truly make me sick." At this point, the malice in her eyes was completely undisguised, almost spilling over. If this were before, I would have hurried to apologize, saying it was my fault, that I hadn't considered her feelings or her pride. Then I would harshly scold the waiter, drive Willow away from here, and take her to eat street food. I would set aside my own dignity, coax her in every possible way, just to make her smile at me. Unfortunately, times have changed. I glanced at my watch and said calmly, "Your part-time job ends at 4. I told you to meet me at 6. Your workplace is less than 2 kilometers from campus. Even if you crawled, you could have gone back to change. You came dressed like this. Exactly whose image are you trying to ruin? Or is it that being my girlfriend makes you unhappy, so you want to make me even more miserable than you?" Willow stared at me in shock, her expression the embarrassment of having her petty intentions exposed. I didn't wait for her to answer before continuing. George, hate forcing people the most, and I never lack people willing to have dinner with me. Since you clearly don't feel like going on a date, go back to campus now." After saying that, I turned around and walked into the restaurant without looking back, calling my buddy David. He arrived quickly and grinned the moment he saw me. "So you finally remembered your bro. People say you've been obsessed with some ungrateful woman lately, throwing money at her, trying to please her, and she doesn't even give you a decent look." Pressing my fingers against my brow, still processing the flood of memories in my mind, I sighed lightly. "It's worse than that. If the story followed the original plot, next, I would continue helping her selflessly in every way, using the Wong family's connections to clear the path for her design career. When Willow's studio finally started gaining attention, my own company would run into trouble and go bankrupt. To avoid dragging her down, I would dramatically propose a breakup and even fabricate having a new lover. She would rise with her growing success, while I sank deeper and deeper. Worse each day, my parents would pass away, and even the only person who stayed by my side would be tortured to death by debt collectors. I would hide my identity and wander the streets, doing every kind of exhausting and dirty job just to survive, delivering food, working construction, anything, until one day, when a drunk passenger beat and cursed me, Willow would appear in front of me, dressed like a wealthy socialite, holding onto another man's arm. She would look down at me and ask, "George, do you regret humiliating me like that?" Thinking of this, I shuddered and took a hard gulp of alcohol. David continued, "When I came in just now, I saw a girl standing at the entrance. Is that your girlfriend?" I nodded. He spread his hands. "She's got some looks, sure, but is she really worth the 800 grand you spent?" David made an exaggerated expression and added, "And she took your money but still treats you like crap. Isn't that basically being a hypocritical bitch?" I tugged at the corner of my lips. "Let's stop talking about things that ruin my appetite. Let's eat first." Chapter 2. When David and I finished our meal and walked out, we found that Willow was still standing at the restaurant entrance. Moonlight wove like silk across her delicate face. She looked at me, her voice slightly hoarse, her expression subdued. She pressed her lips together and said, "George." This was her signal of yielding. In the past, upon seeing her look so pitiful, I would have rushed over to hold her tightly in my arms. Between Willow and me, as long as she lowered her head even a little, I would retreat endlessly without any bottom line. But that was before. I looked at her calmly. "What is it?" she said. "I didn't do it on purpose. The store had too many customers today. My boss kept me for an extra hour, so I didn't have time to go back and change." She softened her tone. "I'm sorry. It won't happen again." I nodded. All right, you're forgiven. Go back to campus. Willow froze for a moment. Where are you going? Home. In the overwhelming memories pouring into my mind, the most urgent matter wasn't my relationship with Willow, it was the company's crisis. When I arrived home, Anna was tending to the small garden in the yard. She and I grew up together. She finished college long ago but still chose to work as a maid in my family. In those memories of the future, after the Wang family went bankrupt, she continued to stay by my side. But in the end, for my sake, she was beaten to death with steel pipes by debt collectors, while I was powerless to help. Thinking about it sent a sharp pain through my chest. I called her softly. Anna. Delighted. She said, "Young Master Wang, you're back." She put down the watering can, brushed aside the hair at her temple, and hurried toward me. A few glass lanterns glowed in the yard, warm yellow light pooling gently across her brows and cheeks, softening her already gentle features into something even more serene and dreamlike. She opened the door and crouched down to help me change my shoes. I asked, "Where are my parents?" Anna said, "Sir and Madam have a social engagement tonight. The project from Crown, we didn't secure it." I was stunned. Why? Wasn't Crown's first choice us? Anna hesitated for a long moment before finally saying, "Last time, when Mr. Wang asked Dr. Li, who's already retired, to come out of retirement, he owed him a favor, and the other party used that to pressure him on the contract amount." I understood instantly. Back then, inviting Dr. Li was for Willow's mother, who had cancer, so he could perform the surgery. Despite disliking my endless, self-degrading simp behavior, my father still compromised helplessly. He even transferred $800,000 to Willow so she could pay for the operation and subsequent hospitalization. My heart felt swallowed by guilt, and my self-loathing surged to its peak. Clenching my teeth, I said bitterly, "I really am a piece of trash." Anna almost immediately shook her head. She looked at me with conviction. "Young Master Wang, don't say that. Everyone makes mistakes. As long as you can stand back up, everything will be all right." In her eyes, I seemed to always be the boy who grew up with her, the one who gave her snacks when we were little. No matter what choices I made, what decisions I took, she would support me unconditionally. But I knew very clearly, I was no longer a child. The responsibilities I should shoulder, I could no longer run from them. Chapter 3. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in the living room waiting for my parents to come home. Anna sat across from me, keeping me company. No matter how I tried to persuade her to rest, she refused. Anna looked at me with complete seriousness and said, "I can't. This is my job." I frowned slightly. "You're really dedicated." She pressed her lips together softly, still lowering her head. Feeling bored, I eventually found myself studying her features carefully. Only then did I realize that Anna's face was in no way inferior to Willow's. Her gentle contours and delicate features were, if anything, even more eye-catching. But because she always stood quietly behind me, I had barely looked at her properly since growing up. "Anna." Suddenly curious, I took a sip of tea and asked, "When you were studying outside all those years, did you ever date anyone?" She froze for a moment, then after a long pause, answered quietly, "No." I frowned in confusion. "You're so beautiful. No one ever pursued you." I couldn't believe it. "Then what type do you like? What do you think of my friend David? He even told me before that he wanted to get to know you." Anna kept her gaze lowered. I couldn't read the emotion in her eyes, only heard the faint grievance and disappointment in her voice. "Young Master Wang, please don't joke about me like that." Later, I fell asleep on the sofa. When I woke up, I found a blanket covering me, and my clothes had been changed into pajamas. I walked into the dining room. Aside from the housekeeper Lisa, Anna was still the only one there. I asked, "Where are my parents?" She said, "Sir and Madam came back in the middle of the night to pack. They said they needed to make a trip to City F. Seeing you were asleep, they said they'd talk to you when they returned." She poured a glass of milk, looked up at me, and said, "Young Master Wang, have breakfast before returning to campus." I nodded and picked up the sandwich on the plate. Suddenly remembering something, I turned around and asked, "After I fell asleep last night, who changed my clothes?" Almost instantly, Anna's cheeks, and even the tips of her ears, flushed bright red. She stepped back abruptly, looking completely flustered. "I'm sorry, young Master Wang." I kept my tone calm, just asking casually. "No need to be so nervous." I hadn't expected such a strong reaction. Her eyes, staring at me, rippled like the surface of a spring lake. For a moment it made me dazed. Anna seemed to realize her lapse in composure and quietly collected herself. A moment later, she said gently, "Young Master Wang, please eat your breakfast. You still have to go to school afterward." The Maybach stopped at the school gates. I pushed the door open and got out. Just as I walked near the academic building, I ran straight into Willow. Under the sycamore tree a few steps away, her slightly curled long hair swayed as she lifted her head, speaking softly to the man standing in front of her. Makoto, Willow's fiancé many years later. In the original storyline, He had secretly loved Willow for years but, due to his inferiority complex, never dared to confess. Because of that, he detested me deeply, but when he finally rose to success and was about to marry Willow, he discovered she still couldn't forget me, and his hatred toward me became even stronger than before. I walked straight toward them, just in time to hear him advising Willow. With righteous indignation, he said, "It's not your fault. How many people could tolerate someone who doesn't even know how to respect women?" Willow pressed her thin lips together. "I know. Don't worry." Makoto looked at her helplessly, his tone filled with indulgence. "He humiliates you again and again. It breaks my heart, Willow. But the next second, if your heart aches so much, then you pay back the 800 grand for her." I let out a cold laugh and said, "Giving you money and finding you a doctor counts as humiliating you. Then let's switch, you come humiliate me." Makoto snapped angrily. "George, yes, you're rich, but it's all because of your family. What abilities do you have? If one day your family goes bankrupt, would you still dare act so high and mighty in front of us?" My mind buzzed. The Makoto in front of me overlapped perfectly with the Makoto from the original plot. Back then, Willow and I had not seen each other for over 5 years. When we met again, Makoto had soared to success, Willow's career was thriving, and I had nothing. With his arm around Willow's shoulders, he threw a handful of cash onto the ground and stepped on my fingers as he said, "See, without you, I can still make Willow happy, but the people around you, none of them end well. George, you are the real curse, the one who ruins everything. If I ever lived like you do, I'd rather die." Provoked by his words, already on the brink of mental collapse, I attempted to end my life. Willow arrived just in time and stopped me, and in the original story, the first thing I did after waking up was kneel before the heroine, repent for my past attitude, and beg for her forgiveness. Chapter 4. But why should I apologize? If she felt humiliated, she could have refused to take my money, refused my help. Instead, she accepted everything, every benefit, every favor, and in the end put on the face of a victim so that everyone who saw me would say, "You owe her an apology." Absolutely shameless. I stopped wasting words and slammed my fist straight into Makoto's face. With a loud thud, he was caught off guard, stumbling back half a step, nearly falling to the ground. Seeing this, Willow hurried forward to steady him, glaring at me with resentment as she said, "George, will you ever stop? Makoto and I are just friends. If you're so angry, then come at me." Yet the very next second, when she saw me raise my hand, she instinctively hid behind Makoto. Makoto felt even more protective. He said, "Willow, don't demean yourself like this." "I'm fine." "What a pair of tragic lovebirds," I said with a laugh. Then I looked at Willow, who was hiding behind Makoto, and asked, "Weren't you telling me to come at you? Then come here." Willow rolled her eyes. "Is this fun for you? If you're still angry about last night, I can apologize. So you just can't bear to take the slap yourself, huh?" I nodded slightly. "Makes sense. After all, for that pretty face of yours, I was foolish enough to spend 800,000. Of course you want to keep it intact." My repeated mention of that sum of money undoubtedly wounded Willow's aristocratic pride. She said, "That's enough." Her expression turned cold, her gaze at me filled with hatred. She said, "I told you, I'll pay you back." I didn't give an inch. "Oh, and when exactly do you plan to do that?" Her eyelashes quivered, but she couldn't give a concrete date. She could only stand there in silence. In the depths of my chest, a sharp, fleeting pain shot through, because I still knew very well, I had once genuinely liked her. A girl as proud and solitary as a winter plum blossom had once caught my eye. So I offered to help her, and afraid my help would hurt her dignity, I lowered myself, bent over backward to please her. In return, she gradually took everything for granted. All my efforts were ignored. She only remembered the feeling of humiliation. So even years later, even after we'd broken up, Willow still held on to that grievance, demanding that I admit, giving her money back then, helping her when she was at her lowest. That was my wrongdoing. The money was something you offered on your own. No one forced you. Makoto said righteously from the side. "George, money can't buy everything. Even if you spend money to force Willow to be with you, you can't make her love you." I looked at him and smiled. "Then who does she love? You." Makoto instinctively glanced at Willow beside him. Seeing that her eyes were fixed entirely on me, the proud expression he'd worn froze ever so slightly. Chapter 5. Time was running out. I had to rush to class, so I stopped paying attention to them. After staying on campus for 2 days, Anna called and told me my parents had returned. When I headed downstairs, Willow blocked me at the entrance. These days, she's in the middle of setting up her own studio, and still working part-time as a waitress at the restaurant. She should be at her busiest. In the past, I was the one who always went to see her, always chasing after her. I asked, "What is it?" Willow looked at me, emotions flickering inexplicably in her eyes. She said, "You said you'd take me to the amusement park. I'm free this afternoon. So she was freeing up her schedule for me. I gave a short, mocking laugh. Move. I don't have time. She refused, staring at me with a wounded, resentful look. George, it wasn't easy for me to get some time. If you keep acting like this, I'll really get mad. You're mad? I found it ridiculous, I said. Willow, know your place, to put it nicely. You're my girlfriend, to put it bluntly. You're someone I paid for to entertain me. When I want to see you, you free up your time immediately. When I don't have time for you, you go wherever and stop bothering me. Got it? Ignoring Willow's humiliated expression, I brushed past her and walked out of the school gates. Anna opened the car door for me. After sitting down beside me, she handed me the paper bag in her arms. I brought you some pastries. I pulled out a piece of pineapple bun, baked almost to the point of being burnt, and turned to her. Lisa made this. I wondered if Lisa had been bribed by a competitor, but Anna pressed her lips together and said softly, "It was me." From my angle, I could see her beautiful side profile, her brows gently curved, long eyelashes trembling slightly because her lips were pressed together, her nose wings contracted faintly, and beneath the veil of loose strands of hair, her ears were flushed red. Anna turned her head away, pretending nothing had happened. I forced myself to take a bite of the bun. Then suddenly, I said, "Your ears are red," and watched successfully as that red spread from her ears to her cheeks. She said, "Mr. Wong brought back a lot of things when he returned." Looking out the window, she stiffly changed the topic. "Lisa specially went to the market to pick fresh tiger prawns. She said she wants to make your favorite braised prawns." Half leaning against the seat, I listened to her talk about these small, everyday things. The warm sunlight streamed in through the window, and without realizing it, I fell asleep. I dreamed again of the storyline from the original text. My family's company went bankrupt. My father jumped off a tall building, and my mother stopped breathing on her hospital bed. Anna followed me as I drifted from place to place, ending up in a shabby rental in an urban village. Yet the debt collectors still found us. Right in front of me, they used steel pipes to crush her leg bones. Inch by inch, covered in blood, she still clung desperately to one man's leg. Her fading eyes fixed on mine. Her trembling voice said, "Run, young master, run." In the dream, I wandered everywhere, unable to find even a half-decent job. To survive, I delivered food, worked on construction sites, any dirty or exhausting work, I took it. People who once flattered me went out of their way to humiliate me, even demanding that I kneel, bark like a dog, and eat dog food. Then came the confident, radiant Willow, transformed, standing beside her newly promoted, high society fiancé Makoto, appearing before me. The dream version of me wanted to fight back, but something held me down, bound me, and strange voices echoed beside my ears. One voice said, "Even though the male lead is pitiful, you can't blame Willow. Her pride was hurt by him. She finally fell for him, only to be dumped. If he doesn't suffer the same pain the heroine did back then, he'll never realize how cruel he once was." Another said, "George is so ungrateful. He's dirt poor now, drowning in debt. Yet Willow is still willing to accompany him and help him rise again. With such a good girl, what more does he want?" Terrified, I opened my eyes wide, looking everywhere, trying to find the source of these voices, but there was nothing, no one. Young Master Wong, Brother Wong." Familiar voices drifted into my ears, like a sudden beam of light piercing through darkness. I jolted awake and saw Anna's face, filled with worry and panic, right in front of me. She was very close, her warm breath brushed against me. It was Anna, alive. Everything in the dream had not happened. Not yet. I stared blankly at her, my vision gradually blurring. She grew flustered, opening her lips but unable to form words. I held her hand, feeling the warmth in my palm, finally dragging myself out of the nightmare and back into reality. I said, "Anna, you can't die." She lowered her eyes. The fingers of her hand, caught in mine, curling slightly. She said, "With the young master's order, I will not die." Chapter 6. After dinner at home, I asked my dad to come with me to the study. He asked, "What is it? Is it that girlfriend of yours needing your help again?" He looked at me helplessly, a faint trace of dissatisfaction toward Willow showing in his eyes. I saw it clearly, and felt even more guilty. I said, "It has nothing to do with her." I clenched my teeth and lowered my voice. "Dad, have you and Mom been looking at any investment projects recently?" The original text never gave details about my family's bankruptcy. It only said that my parents failed in some investment project, the capital chain broke, and it triggered a series of consequences. My dad froze for a moment, then laughed. Why the sudden concern about the company? But even as he said that, he still opened his computer and showed me their recent investment and cooperation plans without holding anything back. At first glance, I didn't see anything unusual, until I found a familiar name among the partners of one of the projects. Martin. If I remembered correctly, in the original text, this man was Willow's closest male friend. 5 years later, the one who helped her significantly in her career. If that was the case, my family's bankruptcy, my parents and Anna's deaths, all the tragedies of my life, could they all be tied to Willow? My heartbeat suddenly sped up, the rush of blood roaring in my ears. I took several deep breaths, trying to keep my tone even as I asked, "Why choose this project?" My dad glanced at it and said, "Oh, that kid Martin approached us first. Your mom and I looked over the proposal and thought it was decent. So we put it on the shortlist. We haven't signed anything yet." A thread of clarity seemed to slowly form in my mind. I stared at Martin's name for a long time before speaking again. I said, "Next time you meet with him, can you bring me along?" My dad agreed. Before I left the study, he suddenly remembered something. He said, "You mentioned last time that I should look after your girlfriend's studio. There was a small order a few days ago." Secretary Zheng reported it, "and I told her to give it to your girlfriend's studio." A wave of sourness spread through my chest. I took a deep breath and shook my head. "Dad, there's no need to help her anymore." A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He asked, "What, did you two have a fight?" I replied, "It's nothing. I just don't like her anymore." The next few days, since I didn't have classes, I went to the company to learn the business. Only then did I learn that my mom had arranged for Anna to work there as an assistant. My mom said, "Anna is actually very capable. It wouldn't be a problem to put her in a management position, but she only wants to work as an assistant." Anna was adjusting the cushions on the sofa. Hearing this, she smiled. "It's an honor that Madam thinks so highly of me, but I'm more afraid people might misunderstand and think you're being biased in official matters. Being an assistant is enough for me." She knelt slightly to place the cushion back in its spot. The fabric of her maid-style uniform tightened slightly, outlining her elegant curves. The short black skirt draped along the line of her legs, revealing a portion of her fair calf. George. It wasn't until my mom called me from the side that I realized I had once again spaced out while staring at Anna. She took a sip of tea, looking thoughtfully between the two of us, then said to Anna, "Anna, how long has it been since you last went shopping? Let George take you." Chapter 7. Previously, I had taken Willow to Chanel once. Just because the saleswoman asked about her budget, she immediately felt mocked and flipped out on the spot. Willow looked at me coldly and said, "Aren't you tired of playing this game over and over?" She turned and walked away. I coaxed her for a long time before she finally gave me a smile. Naturally, in the original text, this incident also became one of my crimes. Just one piece of clothing you casually gave her could cover her mother's medical expenses for half a month. It's like a blatant slap across her face. Do you know how deeply that wounded Willow's pride? Now, Anna followed behind me as we entered the store, her expression as calm as ever. The saleswoman brought out the newest Wang collection. I asked Anna to pick a few pieces to try. After she finished, I was about to pay when Anna took out her own card. She said, "I'm the one buying clothes. Why would young Master Wang pay for me?" I froze for a second, but she smiled gently and said softly, "Young Master Wang, don't worry. I've managed to save some money over the years." In the end, I couldn't win against her. I watched her swipe her card with my own eyes. After leaving the mall, I hadn't yet decided where to go next, when suddenly, from a distance, I saw a familiar figure. Willow. Because I had spoken too harshly that day, she hadn't contacted me at all these past few days, which honestly had made things easier for me. But now, at an hour when she was supposed to be busy at her studio, she walked into a nearby restaurant with a man. My brows furrowed. I followed with Anna. We found a corner seat. After waiting a long while, they finally came out of a private room. I took out my phone and, through the cover of a few plants, snapped a photo of Willow and the man. I asked, "Who is this? Have you seen him before?" Anna looked at the photo, surprised. "It's Martin." As expected, I saved the photo twice as backup, put my phone away, and through the glass watched Martin open the car door for Willow, sending her back to campus. Willow was impeccably made up today, stylishly dressed, nothing like the girl who had been stopped at the restaurant door just half a month ago. I laughed and asked Anna, "Do you think I was blind?" She shook her head. "It's not young Master Wang's fault. It's greed, someone letting dark desires take root." She poured my wine, cut my steak for me, and gently advised, "Eat first. After we return, we'll tell Madam and Sir about this. There's no need for you to worry." Anna knew very well how decisive my father was in the business world, so she wasn't concerned. If it were the former me, I wouldn't be worried either. But in that so-called original text, it was exactly Willow and Martin's crude little scheme that destroyed the Wang family, a family that had grown steadily for decades. Steam rose from my plate, warming Anna's pale fingers until they turned slightly pink. On impulse, I reached out and took her hand. She instinctively tried to pull away, but I held tighter. Her cheeks flushed. "Young Master Wang." Her soft voice trembled, like a feather brushing lightly across my heart. Looking into her misty eyes, I asked in a low voice, "If I tell you something unbelievable, would you be willing to believe me?" Chapter 8. In the villa garden late at night, the moonlight wove itself like silver threads. Anna sat across from me, staring blankly, her eyes reddening as she said, "So, after I died, young Master Wang suffered that much?" I shook my head. Compared to her suffering, mine was nothing. When I thought carefully about it, everything seemed to have gone off track from the moment Willow entered my life. I fell from heaven into the dirt, while she blossomed and soared with bright wings. All the illogical twists existed solely for the sake of a grand, happy ending. I murmured to myself, but I gave her money, helped her grow, did everything I could for her. Shouldn't she have been grateful? Why would she feel humiliated? And if she felt humiliated, she shouldn't have accepted it in the first place. Looking at Anna across from me, a thought suddenly resurfaced. I asked. When I was a kid, I asked my parents to bring you into the Wang family, but I didn't give you the same education and material conditions I had. Did you ever resent me for that? She shook her head. Never. She folded her arms on the table, leaning forward slightly, her gaze steady and sincere. To be chosen by young Master Wang has always been my honor. A faint citrus scent drifted from her. Vaguely, I remembered, it was the perfume I had given her. Back then, I had been obsessed with Willow. Only when passing the counter did I recall that Anna's birthday was approaching and casually chose a bottle for her. She said, "It's getting late. Young Master Wang should go upstairs and rest." Anna spoke, breaking my thoughts. "Whatever happens, I will face it with you tomorrow." She said goodnight, but did not leave immediately. After a pause, she added, "No matter what, I won't let anything from your dream come true." Chapter 9. A few days later, I drove to Willow's studio myself. The 800,000 I had given her back then hadn't all been used for her mother's treatment. Later, she took the remaining amount and used it to set up this studio in the suburbs. When I walked in, I saw her and Makoto huddled in front of a computer, studying something. They were very close, the atmosphere unmistakably intimate. Makoto spotted me first. His expression changed. "Who told you could come in?" Such a guilty reaction, as if they'd been doing something shameful and I had caught them in the act. With my arms crossed, expression blank, I said to him, "I came to see my girlfriend. Do I need your permission?" "Get out." Willow looked at me, but she spoke to Makoto. "You go out first." Makoto shot me an angry glare, then stood up and left. Once the room held only the two of us, Willow switched back to that cold, lofty expression and looked down at me. "What is it?" "Young Master Wang suddenly has free time today and remembered to summon me, your little pastime." She still thought she could control me with her old tricks, thought I would panic, rush to apologize, and do everything I could to please her. I let out a cold laugh. "Since you know your role, why aren't you hurrying over to serve me? Maybe if you serve me well enough, I'll overlook your filthy little affair with your childhood sweetheart." She stared at me, stunned. I continued, "I gave your studio connections and handed you clients. You don't thank me, fine, but you dare act high and mighty toward me. You've got some fucking nerve, George." Willow snapped. Her voice edged with anger she could no longer contain, but I went on as if I hadn't heard her. "Willow, get this straight. This studio was built with my money. If I feel like it, a simple transfer slip and bank statement are enough to reclaim the original shares you owe me. Raise your voice at me one more time, and today you pack your things and get out. Understood?" Willow glared at me, her body trembling with fury. These days, my attitude toward her had been completely different from before. She must have noticed something was wrong, must have been unable to understand it no matter how she tried. At first, I had still felt a faint trace of bitterness, but the moment I realized my family's ruin was connected to her, all of that bitterness turned to pure outrage. I had gambled my future and my dignity, paid with my family's lives, all because I liked this person. And in the end, when I had nothing left, she still worked tirelessly to brainwash me, to PUA me, insisting everything was my fault. I pulled a chair over and sat down, speaking slowly, word by word. "Apologize to me, and then come home with me to see my father. You will thank him in person." Chapter 10. I drove Willow back home. Along the way, she pressed her lips tightly together, sitting stiffly in the passenger seat without saying a word. I said lightly, "You took everything you wanted, so stop looking like a corpse. Who exactly are you trying to make uncomfortable?" She closed her eyes briefly. "George, I'm not someone who sells smiles." I let out a short, cold laugh. "Sorry, but you are. When I tell you to smile, you smile. If not, get out." When we stepped inside, Anna was trimming the flowers in the yard. Her gaze fell on Willow. There was still a gentle smile on her lips, but a subtle coldness surfaced in her eyes. She greeted me warmly. "Young Master Wang, you're back. And this is..." I shrugged. "My girlfriend, Willow." Her lips trembled slightly. "Miss Willow, what do you like to eat? Lisa and I can prepare it," I said. "No need. She's not staying for dinner. She's only here to meet my dad." I took Willow upstairs. My father was waiting in the guest room, his gaze sweeping over Willow with open scrutiny. Willow stood before him, her eyes reddened. as if she had suffered unbearable humiliation. With great difficulty, she forced out a reluctant, choking "thank you." After she left, my father sighed. "George, with someone like Anna as a comparison, how did you ever come to like a woman like this?" "Anna." I lifted my head abruptly, meeting my father's look of regret. He said, "All these years, your mother and I have seen clearly how Anna feels about you. Back then, when I objected to you and Willow, it wasn't about status. If it had been a thoughtful girl like Anna, I wouldn't have said a single word against it. But Willow, she's proud, overbearing, and endlessly demanding. A pure, refined egoist," my father muttered as he headed downstairs. I stood frozen, then walked to the window and looked out. In the dimming twilight, Anna was still tending carefully to the little garden. I remembered that when we were young, Anna had a fairy tale dream. She envied princesses who had their own gardens and longed for the story of a prince proposing to the princess in a garden. So I asked someone to create a garden for her. I had promised to take care of the flowers with her, but as time passed, I grew impatient. In the end, only Anna remained, and she tended to them, year after year. When we were children, I saw her as a little sister. Later, when I saw more of the world and she always followed quietly behind me, I gradually overlooked her existence. But tonight, hearing my father say she had feelings for me, what kind of feelings could Anna possibly have? The answer wasn't hard to guess. I walked down the stairs toward the garden. In those short minutes, countless memories of Anna flashed through my mind. On the ground lay a trimmed rose branch, already somewhat withered. "Anna." I picked it up and called to her softly. "You seem unhappy." She answered quietly. "It's my own problem." I asked, "Is it because I said Willow is my girlfriend in front of you?" She turned slightly away from me, avoiding my gaze. I said, "But that was part of the plan we agreed on. I won't be with her. So why are you still unhappy?" Holding the rose, I walked over and straightened her shoulders, forcing her to face me. "Anna, look at me. It's impolite not to look at someone when they're speaking to you." Under the moonlight, her lowered eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly's wings, trembling softly against the tip of my heart. Through the thin fabric, her burning warmth pressed into my palm. With a trace of helplessness, she tried to avoid my gaze. Her voice hitched slightly as she said, "I'm sorry, young Master Wang, if I made you think I'm too preteen." She didn't finish, because I cupped the back of her head and kissed her. The kiss was reckless and heated. In the haste of it, my teeth bumped against her lips, and she let out a soft sound, her face flushing even deeper. I laughed and said, "You have to respond to me." She looked up at me, breathing lightly. "I'm sorry, young Master Wang. I've never learned how." "Then hold on to me," I said, "so you don't fall." "Okay." As our chests brushed together, the rose in my hand was crushed, petals scattering across the ground. Both my clothes and Anna's were stained with faint strokes of red. Her fresh citrus scent gradually twined with a sweeter, more intoxicating warmth. She fell completely into my arms, and together we sank onto the swaying garden swing. When the kiss finally ended, both of our breaths were unsteady, our hearts beating chaotically. I looked at her and asked, "Anna, do you like me?" She stared at me helplessly, as if the secret she had never dared reveal was suddenly exposed. After a long moment, she whispered, barely audible, "I just don't want young Master Wang to think I have improper intentions." I clicked my tongue softly and pulled her firmly into my arms. I said, "Isn't it possible that I'm the one with improper intentions?" Chapter 11. When I was 4, because I envied David for having a younger sister, I also begged my parents to give me one. My mother laughed and said, "Even if we had another child, it wouldn't necessarily be a girl." So they took me to the orphanage. Anna was the sister I chose for myself there. She was obedient and adorable, always clinging to people. Every time school ended, she would run over to find me. As my parents' careers grew more and more demanding, leaving them no time to look after the house, it was always Anna and I who kept each other company. When I was 11, the school held a play. Anna auditioned for the role of Snow White, and she cried and made a fuss until I auditioned too. In the end, I was chosen to play the evil queen. During the year of the college entrance exam, Anna was admitted to the best university just as she had wished, but I failed due to illness. Unable to fulfill my promise, I chose to repeat the year instead of studying abroad. Anna cried for days, nearly deciding to repeat the year with me, but I stopped her. I told her, "Anna, you're turning 18. You should know what that means for you." Anna cried and said, "But you said you're my brother. You'll stay with me." I said, "It's my fault I couldn't keep my promise." "But you have your own life. Everyone must take responsibility for their own future. No one can accompany someone forever, not even a brother." It seemed from that moment on, Anna began calling me young Master Wang instead. When my thoughts returned, Anna's face in front of me had flushed from the tips of her ears to her cheeks. She whispered, "Young Master Wang would never have improper intentions." I asked, "Why don't you call me brother anymore?" She pressed her lips together. "I can't call you that." I narrowed my eyes. "Why not? You called me that countless times when you were little." When she didn't answer, I asked again, "Do you like me?" She took a deep breath and finally, as if accepting her fate, nodded, then softly said, "I never thought about it." I asked, "Never thought about what?" Her gaze lingered on mine, growing gentler, and she said, "I never thought you would notice me, as if the moon, hanging high in the sky, would choose at some moment to shine its light upon me." I cupped her face. "Then what should I do to make you believe it?" She rose on her toes, leaned in, and brushed her lips lightly against my fingertip. She said, "This is enough." When Anna and I returned to the house, my mother immediately called her into the guest room. My father sat in the living room, poured me a cup of tea, and asked, "Are you truly sure you won't soften toward that Willow girl?" I said, "She's already planning to strike at our family. How could I possibly let her go? To be ruined and left with nothing, yet still remain infatuated with the very person responsible. That was nothing but a plot forced on the protagonist by some writer." My father let out a breath of relief. "I was just a little worried. After all, the way you were before, it looked like no one but her would do," I said with shame. "I was young and foolish. I couldn't judge people clearly." I added, "Fortunately, there's still a chance to make up for it." Nothing had become irreversible the way it had in the dream. Over the next month, I went to see Willow every single day, watching her expression grow more complicated with each visit. At first, she still had the energy to argue with me, throwing my cold sarcasm right back in my face. But soon, she didn't have the time, because her collaboration with Martin encountered problems. This wasn't 5 years later, and the scheme they were plotting together was one with extremely high returns and equally high risks. Willow could never have imagined that everything fell apart simply because she had stayed at my house for an afternoon, and because my father pretended to casually agree to her proposed enormous bride price. At the same time, for the project they intended to use as a trap, no matter how much profit they dangled before my parents, my father and mother refused to budge. From their tone, it seemed they had already sensed ulterior motives. Martin, naturally suspicious to begin with, started doubting Willow. He questioned her, probing what exactly she had said to my father that day at my house, and whether she had accidentally exposed them. Willow, of course, denied everything, but the more she denied, the more Martin suspected she had betrayed him. Willow could no longer obtain information about Martin's next steps, and the resources Martin had originally promised for Willow's studio were all withdrawn. She also couldn't get help from me anymore. Her design career fell into a stalemate. Anna said, "Mr. Wang, from what I've observed these past few days in the company, I'm nearly certain that Martin has indeed planted people internally, specifically in the most important financial system." When we returned home that night, Anna told us in the study that the company's financial accounts had started showing issues 3 months ago. Their moves were extremely well hidden. If no one had noticed, in less than half a year the Wang family's cash flow would break entirely, unable to continue operating. And this lined up perfectly with the timeline of my family's bankruptcy in the original text. My father said, "A 1,000-mile dam can collapse because of an ant's nest. If George hadn't warned us, your mother and I would have suffered a terrible loss at Martin's hands." He let out a long sigh, patted my shoulder, and his eyes sharpened. "But from here on," he said, "it's time to close the net." Chapter 12. My father finally relented and agreed to sign the investment contract with Martin, but the official corporate seal used in the contract had already expired during review. So we had to go through the procedures again, get approval, and re-sign it. During this gap in time, in order to keep the project looking as if it were still running normally, Martin nearly exhausted all the funds he had on hand. He mobilized the people he had planted in the Wang family's financial system long ago, only to be caught red-handed. My father immediately called the police. The authorities soon took Martin away, along with the people he had arranged and all other participants involved in the fake investment project. He was an illegitimate son in his family, unable to compete with the children of the legal wife for the inheritance. He set his sights on the now thriving Wang family. It was a high-stakes gamble, only he lost. When all this happened, I was sitting at the desk in Willow's studio. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if the words she was about to speak were too humiliating to say. Then she said, "George, can you help me one more time?" Without Martin's funding, and with my father secretly suppressing her, her studio was already on the verge of collapse. I looked at her coldly and said, "Are you begging me for help?" She said, "Yes." I laughed. "Is this the attitude of someone asking for help? Kneel down, say a few nice things and maybe I'll consider it." Her head snapped up, her gaze locking onto mine. After a moment of collision, Willow bit her lip and knelt down in front of me. Humiliation twisted across her face, her voice filled with hatred she struggled to swallow. She said, "Please help me." I stood up and kicked her to the ground. I said, "Ridiculous, Willow. Do you really think there's anything you've done that I don't know? Why would you ever believe I'd still help you?" She struggled up from the floor, eyes red, choking. She said, "George, you're my boyfriend." I let out a short, Derisive laugh. Oh, my mistake, I forgot to tell you we broke up. A momentary blankness flashed across her face as she stared at me in disbelief. I understood why. The old me had been nothing but a simp obsessed with her. No matter what harsh words I had said in the past, I had never once mentioned breaking up. In her mind, my sudden change in attitude had to be a tactic, just a way to force her to stay away from Makoto. She thought I couldn't live without her. The plot had indeed been written that way. If I hadn't awakened my memories, then in the face of the Wong family's looming bankruptcy, I would still have been trying desperately to fabricate some "grown tired of you" breakup excuse and shoulder all the blame myself. After a long pause, she frowned and said, "Why, you're just tired of me, aren't you?" I shrugged. "Because you're a curse, Willow. You drain the fortune of my family." I savored the flicker of panic in her eyes. I said, "Isn't your pride supposed to be so precious? If you really felt insulted, why didn't you refuse me at the beginning? Plotting with others to target my family's assets on one hand, then shamelessly begging me for help on the other. Tell me, aren't you pathetic?" Outside, the wail of police sirens grew closer. Martin had probably already given up the names of his accomplices. The moment the officers pushed the door open, I leaned casually against the desk, looking at her with calm indifference. I said, "Willow, your sweet little dream of repaying kindness with betrayal ends here." Chapter 13. When everything was finally settled, I met with David again to thank him for the things he had intentionally, or unintentionally, said in front of Martin. He said, "It was just something that slipped out. Not worth you coming all the way here to thank me." David waved his hand dismissively, then glanced out the window. "I heard you're with Anna now," he said. I held my glass and asked, "Are you angry?" He looked confused. "Why would I be angry?" I said. "You mentioned before that you were a little interested in Anna." David let out a short laugh. "I noticed long ago that she only has eyes for you. I just tested the waters a bit. Didn't expect you to have no reaction at all, and instead get obsessed with that bitch like Willow. Do you know how they laughed at you back when we went out together? They all said you were a simp, spending money, putting in effort, and in the end not getting anything out of it." He glanced at my empty glass and pushed the bottle toward me. "Good thing you've woken up now," he said. "If Martin and your ex had succeeded together, you and I probably wouldn't have seen each other again for the rest of our lives." He wasn't wrong. According to the original storyline, after the Wong family went bankrupt, I never saw David again. I finished the last glass of wine, said goodbye to David, and walked out the door. Anna was waiting outside, looking at me under the moonlight. I spoke, my voice roughened by alcohol. "Why didn't you come in to look for me?" She replied, "By reason. When young Master Wong is dining with a friend, I should wait outside as your maid." I shook my head and pulled her tightly into my arms. "What maid?" I muttered. "You're my girlfriend, Anna." I reached out and pinched her flushed ear, a sudden thought crossing my mind. "If I pierced your ear right here and put on diamond earrings, you'd look beautiful." She blushed and said, "If young Master Wong wants to see it, I'll get it done tomorrow. Whatever you like, I'll do." Once we got in the car, my drunkenness surged. I looked at her delicate features with dissatisfaction and provoked her. "So, when exactly are you planning to change how you address me? When we sleep together tonight, are you planning to call me the same thing?" Her hand tightened in mine. A moment later, she threw herself into my arms, and a soft voice brushed my ear like a falling feather. She said, "If you like, I can even call you Master." Chapter 14. A few months later, the verdicts for Willow and Martin were finally announced. Both of them, implicated in financial crimes, received sentences of 3 years and 1 year and 9 months respectively. The punishment wasn't heavy, but heavy enough to stain their lives with a permanent mark. I went to the prison to see Willow, separated by the glass panel. She looked at me with pain and unwillingness in her eyes. I asked, "Do you feel this shouldn't have been your ending?" Then I said, "You think you should have walked to a place where all eyes are on you, receiving everyone's admiration while stepping on me, grinding me into the dust, and then pretending to be some saint who saves me afterward. Isn't that right?" But now, all of that has collapsed. The suffering she feels is nothing more than the suffering she originally planned to inflict on me. She bit down on her lower lip. After a long silence, she suddenly said, "Actually, I really liked you, George. Not long after school started, I noticed you in the crowd. You always seemed free, always unburdened by life, enjoying things without a care in the world, things I could never reach. I did like you, but when you used money to taint my sincerity, all I felt was disgust. I only wanted to be an independent woman, not bound by anyone. I wanted you to stop looking at me from above, with pity and superiority. I wanted you to look up to me. Only when you understood how humiliated I felt today and apologized would I be willing to be with you. Is that wrong?" Her logic genuinely made me laugh out loud. I asked, "That's not wrong. Are you out of your mind? You're an independent woman, but you want my money. What? Being an independent woman doesn't mean earning your own money. Before college we didn't even know each other. Your pain and misfortune have absolutely nothing to do with me. I gave you money to help you, you should have thanked me. If you felt insulted, you should have thrown the money in my face and told me that you, Willow, are an independent woman who doesn't need my filthy money. But you didn't. The truth is, you stayed because you coveted what my Wong family had. You're just a hypocritical slut pretending to be righteous, understand? Willow looked at me with a pale face. The rebuttal in her mouth carried no weight at all. She shook her head and whispered, "It's not like that," I said. "Oh, right, I forgot to tell you. Your mother's cancer has relapsed. Unfortunately, without the money you sold yourself for, Makoto, who used to visit her every single day, has run off too." In the original storyline, Willow's mother never once thanked me for helping her. She believed I had tainted her daughter's noble character with money. Whenever I called to check on her, she filled the phone with mockery and insults, refusing to let me visit. And after my family went bankrupt, when her cancer returned and she was at death's door, she forced Willow and Makoto to get engaged. Through that, Makoto gained the chance to rise using the assets stripped from the Wong family. But in this life, she won't live to see any of that happen. I curled my lips into a small smile and stood up. I said, "Since you'll have plenty of time in prison, pray for her more. Pray that by the time you get out, she's still alive, so you two can have one last reunion." When I stepped out of the prison doors, the brilliant sunlight fell over me. I turned to Anna and asked, "Tell me, was there a single word Willow said that's believable?" Anna shook her head. I laughed and said, "Exactly. I don't believe her either. How could anyone claim they liked someone by dragging him down from a high place, watching him fall half dead, forcing him to suffer in the dirt, then demanding he apologize before granting him a watered-down scrap of affection?" We walked a few steps, and Anna suddenly spoke. "Not everyone thinks that way." I tilted my head toward her. She continued, "I like you in a way where I hope you always sit high above, waiting for me up ahead. I'll walk on my own, until the day I can stand right behind you." After a long silence, I reached out and held her hand. I said, "But I don't want you standing behind me. I want you walking beside me." Her warm fingertips curled inside my palm, gently brushing, full of quiet temptation, but her expression was demure, gaze lowered, a faint smile touching her lips as she answered in a voice soft and enticing, "Yes, master."